Hi, and welcome to the unit on financial literacy. So, in this unit, we're going to be looking at your own personal economy. I bet you didn't know that you had your own personal economy. Well, you do. Just like a country or a business, you spend, you invest, and there are strategies and rules that can make what you do with your assets better, and will have a better future because of it. So, we're going to look at those rules to improve your own personal economy. So, what are personal finances? Personal finances are an individual's assets. Well, this is another vocabulary word. What's an asset? An asset is anything that you add that creates wealth. First thing that comes to mind, money. Money is an asset, but it's not your only asset. Assets can also be personal property. Personal property are things like clothes, furniture, your cell phone. Now, don't get confused by that word property. It's not just land, right? This shirt, this is my personal property. I own it. My sister can't take it from me. My house is I own it. It is my personal property. My car, if I own it, is my personal property. Now, why am I making this distinction about owning something? Because an asset has to be owned before it becomes an asset. If it's not owned, it's what's called a liability. For example, if you go to a car dealership and you buy a car, you probably will have to take out a loan. That means you now owe them for the car. You drive off the lot, you wreck your car. You now have to go into your assets, you have to go into your bank account and pay off that loan. It's not an asset until you own it. So, how can we manage our assets to build wealth, have a better life, ensure that we don't have to worry about things like paying our bills? We want to be able to spend and save and invest wisely to be better prepared for the future. Money is not unlimited. You can have a lot of money or you can have a little bit of money, but it's important to know how to manage it. My favorite example of this is the person who wins the lottery. People who play the lottery often they're like, oh, if I could just win the lottery and pay off my car and pay off my house, I would be set. My life would be easy, right? They win the lottery. Did you know that 70% of people who win the lottery within 5 years are broke? That windfall of money, all of the things that they thought was going to make their life easier, it didn't help because they didn't know these tools. They didn't have these strategies for how to spend wisely, how to save wisely, how to invest wisely. And that's what this course is going to show you is whether you have a little or a lot, there are some things that you can do to make your life, to make it work and be better. You have to know how to solve personal finances, the challenges as they arise. And we're going to look at these challenges individually. We're going to look at short term versus long term goals. We're going to look at needs versus wants. And we're going to consider the opportunity cost and risk versus return. So let's look at the first one, short term versus long term goals. Short term versus long term goals are very important because this determines how you spend your money. If you do not define your short term and long term goals, then you're going to be easily swayed to spend your money and you're not going to achieve what you want to achieve. So you've got to identify what your goals are. For example, your goals are going to be very different from my goals. My goals are very different from my sister's goals. I'm the oldest of six, and you would be amazed at the wide variety of goals within our family. My goal was that I wanted to get married. I wanted to have a pretty easy job, make a good salary. I didn't need to make $1 million, but I needed to be able to pay my bills. I wanted to have some children, live in the country. My sister's goal, she did not want to live in the country. She wanted to live in the city. She didn't care how stressful the job. She was going to make a lot of money, whether it was high stress or not stressful, and did not want children, no children. So her goals and my goals were very different. But how we manage the money and how we apply these tools and strategies um, is very important. So you have to set your goals and know what your goals are. So there are short-term goals and there are long-term goals. Short-term goals are less than a year. So let's think about you, the high school student. What are some short-term goals for you? You may be planning to go to the prom. What are some things that you need to save money for going to the prom? You might need to save money for a corsage or a limousine or dinner or a prom dress or a suit. So those, again, those are goals. Those are short-term goals. Long-term goals for a high school student. Maybe you're planning at the end of 4 years, you don't want to live with your parents anymore. Okay, if that's a goal, you have to start saving for that. Going to college, maybe you're determined that you want to attend a 4-year school, so maybe you need to save for tuition. This idea of setting your goals influences how you spend your money, because let's say you want to go to the Bahamas, but you also want a down payment for a house. Rent versus buying. College versus tech school. It all goes back to your goals. What are your short-term goals and what are your long-term goals? After you've determined that, you want to determine needs versus wants. Needs versus wants are, again, you have to evaluate them based on your situation and against your goals. Technically, a need would be air, food, water, shelter, clothing. These are things that you have to survive. Now, the degree to which you have them, that could be a want. I'm pretty satisfied with average food. I don't need fancy food. But maybe for you a $100 steak. So there is definitely some leeway in needs versus want, right? But for the basics, you have to have air, food, water, shelter, clothing. Let's think about wants for a minute. A car. Most people, they would say that you need a car, that's a need. But is it? When I was in college, I was dropped off on campus. My parents bought me a meal plan and I could walk to all my classes. I was not given a car. I was told that a car was a want, not a need. But if I went to a different school where I could not get to my classes on foot, or maybe there was no public transportation, then it would become a need. High paying job. Maybe you feel that it is a need to get a high paying job. But what if that job, the only place you could get that job would be in Alaska? Is that more of a want? Would you take a lesser paying job if it was closer to home? So again, needs and wants, you have to be evaluated on your goals. That determines your spending. Your needs and your wants determine your spending. And it's going to influence how hard you push back against things that cause you to spend. Are you easily influenced by advertising? A commercial comes on and you see the new and best shoes and you're like, oh my goodness, I have to have them. And you go out and you buy them. If you have long and short-term goals, you might not necessarily be as easily swayed by advertising. Are you an emotional spender? Does spending make you happy? You're often confusing wants and needs causes people to overspend. Are you buying to impress other people? Maybe you feel like you need to wear the nicest clothes so that you can impress that girl or impress that boy. So thinking really closely about your short and long-term goals and what's a need and what's a want will help you to avoid overspending. Now, the next thing we want to evaluate is opportunity costs. Opportunity costs we talked about in a different lesson in relationship to the economy. We're going to talk about it here as in relationship to your personal economy. So a reminder that opportunity cost is what you are giving up. It's the next best alternative. It helps you determine how much do you value this? What am I giving up now to have this? Or what am I giving up in the future to have this? It's that idea of, if I spend my money now on this book, right? I go to the store and I buy this book. It means that later, tomorrow, I cannot go out to dinner with my friends. I gave up the opportunity to go out to eat. That's a short-term, very, microcosm thing. But let's think about college. You determine that you want to go to college. Okay. Well, there's cost there. There is an opportunity cost there. The opportunity cost for college is that you cannot go to work directly out of high school. You're giving up 4 years of earnings. There's an earning potential that you're losing while you're in college. So remember that opportunity cost is not the money that you pay, right? It's not the $20 that I give that I paid for my book. The opportunity cost is the inability to go to that dinner date. College is not the tuition cost, right? It costs money to go to college. That's not the opportunity cost. The opportunity cost is that I cannot now work and gain experience and gain money through working. So make sure you make that distinction. Your long-term and short-term goals influence what you choose to do and what you value for your opportunity cost. Risk versus return. Everything involves risk. Risk means that you want to evaluate a situation and say, what goes wrong if I make this choice? Some people are much more prone to do this, right? Oh, I'm not going to do that. Like maybe you're just a little bit more nervous and you're just like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm a little bit more risk adverse. And we'll talk about that when we look at investing. But there is always risk involved. Going to college involves risk. What risk can go in college? What could go into college? What risk could there be there? You go to college, you spend 4 years of your life learning about the skill. You get out, no jobs involved. No jobs available. But there's also return, right? There you have learned that skill. You have knowledge. You have the ability to do things. So you have to evaluate, is the risk of not finding your dream job or not getting a job after 4 years of college, is that risk worth the return? So all of these things are how you evaluate how you spend your money. It goes back to the original question. What do you want your future to look like? How can you use these tools to evaluate and spend your money effectively to meet these goals? How can creating short and long-term goals help you? You're going to evaluate your spending to determine if it's a want or a need. You're going to use it to evaluate the opportunity cost. You're going to use to evaluate risk and reward. All of this will help you achieve your goals.